Investment advisory services offered by Pryor McCormick Investments, an Alabama registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Stern AG Financial Services Incorporated. Member FINRA SIPC. Pryor McCormick Investments and Stern AG Financial Services Incorporated are not affiliated companies.
All right, so welcome back to the show, Superstation 101 WYDE, a new addition to the show that I'm proud to bring to you, and it's from the good folks at Pryor McCormick. They're financial planners and just know this stuff. Steve Pryor, gotten to know him over the years, and is a guy I trust to give me advice. Steve, I keep up with these headlines, and there's a bunch of them today. First of all, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. It's good to be here.
And thank you for being aboard with us.
Appreciate it. You know, when I was driving up today, I heard you do such a great job of the promo about 30 minutes ago talking about the show, but I was a little surprised to hear that the segment's going to be on Monday.
Yeah, I was saying Monday. Apparently, AJ didn't even slap me. Usually, AJ, it's Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, right?
So it's AJ's fault, right?
It's because today felt like a Monday the whole time. Yeah, Nick Hort, our account executive, came here and said, "It's Wednesday." Sorry, dude. Just cut me some slack. It's a long show. We got time to adjust. Yeah, on Wednesdays at 5:30, Steve, and sometimes I guess you'll bring Jim along, and we're going to just try to break down this financial news because these times, Steve, are just so uncertain. You got interest rates in flux. The market's all over the place. People are trying to be strategic. They need professional advice, and we'll get into some of that about what some of you guys do. But what do you make of some of the news today? For example, big Fed speech, and everybody's all worried.
Yeah, Bernanke has been hinting at that they were going to end this tapering thing. The tapering is nothing more than, and the government has been pumping money into the system by buying bonds.
Yeah.
That's taking money out of one pocket, putting it into another pocket to buy bonds to help support bonds and keep interest rates low. And that was sort of needed in 2008, 2009. Some would say it was mandatory. It was absolutely necessary. But, you know, the recovery's been going 4 years now. And the idea that low interest rates, artificially low interest rates, could really add any punch at this point is long gone. So it's really been, to some people's thoughts, this has been a political decision to keep interest rates artificially low this long. So they came out and said, all right, we're going to taper off a little bit. We're going to stop buying all these bonds, and it's going to take a while. And, of course, the market, I mean, the last couple of 3 years, the market has belonged to Bernanke. I mean,
so, because the increase of the Dow is coming on this expectation they're going to keep pumping money.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's amazing how much difference just a little change in interest rates will do to the stock market because it makes that much difference to large companies.
Yeah.
And I know some small companies, like, for instance, our company has never borrowed money. We're just not interested. Maybe that's one reason we're not bigger than we are. But basically, the big companies in America run on borrowed money, sort of like the country as well. And when interest rates start going up, they'll stop borrowing or it'll get more expensive. And as we've all anticipated with the government, we owe so much money. We put out all these bonds. If interest rates go up 1%, then all of a sudden we're even farther underwater than we are. And people are afraid that's going to happen to companies.
Do you think consumers will react by thinking? I think some folks sit back and go, "Well, it's on the bottom. I'm going to get it. I'm going to wait and before it moves up. Then I'll try to jump on, say, for a refi or a mortgage, or will it have a different effect like we saw in the markets today? Folks kind of put the brakes on a little harder because things become more expensive."
Yeah, well, there's good news behind what's happened in the last few years. You know, the average American's debt 5-6 years ago was like 131% of their annual take-home pay, and now it's down to 106%. So people are spending less. They're still borrowing. They still owe more than they make in a single year. That's not all that healthy, but hopefully what it'll do as far as the average guy is concerned is make them even more Dave Ramsey friendly. You know, get rid of the debt. Go forward. I mean, we talk about it all the time. We see people come into the office, they're in their 50s or so, and some of them even later. They'd say, okay, I want to retire at 62, 65, whatever. I've got, a $40,000 truck payment and a, $1,800 house payment, and I got the place at the lake, and we like to do this, that, and the other. But I've got $50,000 saved in my K-1. That ain't working.
Wow.
That ain't working. So we see that. So hopefully it will encourage people to do the right thing.
You told me one time in our chats that it's never too late to adjust, and people are feeling defensive right now Can you still do things? I mean, Obamacare's leaning on us. Taxation's coming with some of that. The markets are weird. What do you do?
Well, I've been in this business, 106 years now, so I've seen a great deal. And it really is never too late. And the bad news is it's harder than it's ever been. Mm-hmm. It really is, because the people who need the tax breaks, things like contributions to IRAs or whatever, they phase out for the people who are actually in the higher tax bracket. But it's also easier in other ways. We have better technology. We have all sorts of ways we can handle money that we didn't even 10 years ago. The smartest thing is to use professional institutional money managers. That's all they do all day, every day, is manage your money at different risk levels. And used to, it would take $600,000 maybe as a minimum to get to one manager and cost 3% a year. These days, you can get some of those same managers for $25,000 and it only costs 1 or 2%. So it's harder than it's ever been, but it's also we have better tools than we've ever had.
Okay. Well, and I guess demographics are a big part of this, because the younger people tend to be more risky. But I'm reading some trends where there's a younger generation that are becoming debt averse. Some of them, and I guess student debt has shocked some of them, and that's another bubble that we're kind of watching too. And but I guess our audience would be older than that, not the college age, but a little bit older. And so you're saying that there's still strategies to employ if you're like me in your mid 40s, you can see retirement on the horizon now, and you become less risk averse. But we're in a tense, nervous environment. You can still protect that, and there's still places to grow.
Oh, absolutely. People have never made a lot of money being pessimistic or betting against this country. And I have to say, listen to you, for ever since that I've been listening to you for just years, I get just as despondent as anybody else. Last November, I basically gave up. But to hear when you talk about things like we're going to get through this, we're bigger than this, and I don't want to be blowing smoke at you or anything. But
go ahead. No problem. I'll sit back and go ahead, Steve.
It has been useful, even to an old guy like me. It's very good to hear. I've sort of given up on some things, but it just makes me work harder on other things. And there are plenty of things to do out there. I mean, look at it this way. The last 50 years, go back 50 years if you want, the stock market has returned better than 10% return, positive return, 60% of the time, including 4 out of the last 5 years. I mean, that's if you can't make money in that environment, everybody's scared to death, and you have to be more careful. It's like walking through a landmine field. But the money's there to be made. You just have to be smart about it.
I just believe in my amateurish study of economies and what's going on politically that we've seen crisis before. We've gone through depressions, wars. We're a flexible country and designed to absorb some things. We've absorbed this recession so far. We're struggling, but we're hanging in there. There's money on the sidelines that's ready to turn loose. A lot of our politicians are holding us back. But we're just a few days away from getting past some of that, I hope. And if China were to blow, people are worried about Europe. We're kind of still the best thing going in this world for investment, right? This country?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been true for years, and really over the long haul, it's always been true. Sometimes when things are at their worst, even in this country, the professionals call it the NOLA trade, N-O-L-A, no other logical alternative. Yeah. You have to invest here because, people talk about the dollar not being the currency of record for the country. That's just nuts. Because what are you going to use? You can't believe anything the Chinese say.
Sure.
And I don't know who's speaking for the euros, but I certainly wouldn't count on that as a strength currency. So we have to look at what makes sense and what honestly makes sense. Just strip away all the politics and all the hysteria and all that. Although we have to be diversified, investing in America is still the most consistent and best way to make money.
Well, look, we're going to continue with our chat. I want to put the phone number out there because I know you said you would take calls. People got individual questions, and sometimes people do. 941, y'all know the number, 941-1011. Steve Pryor, Pryor McCormick. Toll free anywhere in the listening area, 866-551-9933. If you have questions about a scenario, I know you're not going to get too deep into specifics and giving out certain kinds of advice, but we can talk in generalities about stuff.
Yeah, the only thing about the questions, make them easy. You know, if they make them hard and I can't answer them, I'm going to be making stuff up anyway.
So let me ask you an easy one. How many wheels are on a bicycle, Steve? And who is it that's in Grant's tomb? I've been
And if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around, would it still make a sound?
We have questions.
Yes.
I will research that and get back with you like next Monday night on the show.
If a man is in the woods and
you didn't catch that,
and he
Leland,
says
did you?
something and his wife doesn't hear him, is he still wrong?
I can speak to that one, and the answer is definitely yes.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so real quick before we hit the break. So Bernanke, I don't know what he said today. I've been trying to understand it, and the markets go down too, and we saw a little uptick in some of the bond rates. Is that just a nervous reaction for today and we'll settle back down, or is that a trend?
Well, he has determined what's happening in both the stock and bond markets for years just by what they do with interest rates and how they hint. So the trades that drove the stock market down 206 points today and bonds also losing were in place. Everything was ready. All this automatic trading, that's
Just
ready to
waiting on
go.
him to get done.
All they have to do is push one button, and those trades go into place.
Interesting. Well, we'll keep watching it, but you guys at Pryor McCormick advise people on a variety of assets, not just the markets.
Absolutely, yeah. We everything we do is based around financial planning. We don't sell products. You'll never hear me talk on this show, hopefully, about anything you can write down and go buy. That's dangerous. That's like you walking in a doctor's office and he says, here's a prescription, take this, before he even examines you. You have to have that as the center. Now, selling products is an honorable thing. A lot of companies do that. They just go down the street saying, hey, this is what we got, and this is what you can buy from us. As long as they don't pretend that they're doing what's best for you. They're just selling a product. Nothing wrong with that.
As long as you know it up front.
Absolutely.
But you guys are independent of that, so you're just trying to give the best strategic advice.
Yeah, people have asked us, why are you independent? I tell you honestly, that's the best thing about our firm. I mean, we got some smart people. Please don't judge everybody in our firm by me. We have some smart people there. And good people, too, I have to say, good people. We've been independent. The company that is now Pryor McCormick went independent in '89. And we are not owned by a bank, an insurance company, a Wall Street firm, anything like that. We own it ourselves, and we have only our clients and ourselves to answer to. And that sounds like a commercial. It sounds, but it's absolutely true, and it is probably the most important thing about us.
Well, it's why I trust you to do these segments, because you're coming in here and we're going to break it down. And sometimes it may not be good, sometimes it will be good, and I hope we can get back into good territory. Let's switch. AJ, is this you going to release this call or whatever? I was going to go ahead and get this call on, but apparently AJ's having his own conversation with him. Maybe he's giving him financial advice. I don't know. Here's Angela in Alabaster. What's up, Angela?
Hey, I've actually got two questions. The first one is I just turned 50. No, hold your applause, please.
Nice.
And
Hey, that's nothing. I passed that a long time ago.
I'm heading there.
I'm actually proud. I'm happy for it.
Good.
So because the alternative, well, that's kind of sad.
That's right.
But so I've got a 401k. It's not huge. My husband was in the military, so what he always tells me is that our health care will be provided when we get to the appropriate age. I'm not so sure I can trust that anymore, but that's what we're going with. Social Security will probably run out, hopefully, before I die, based on the year that they are telling us that it's going to run out. I hope to still be alive and kicking. So what kind of percentage should I put in my retirement versus medical versus Social Security nest eggs?
Good question.
Yeah, those are great questions, and I can tell you, I don't really know, obviously, what's going to happen in the future, much less with a giant government program like Social Security, but I have always believed, and I still do, Social Security will be there. It will be there for you at least at 50, and probably for the 30-year-olds, too. It may not be in its current form. You may have to be age 93 before you can start collecting,
Right.
and
Well,
inflation may have doubled the cost of living like it did in the 70s, but it'll almost certainly be there. I don't trust the government as much as anybody I know, but I have seen the retired military medical program at work, and I love it. It is good. It is one of the things that warms your heart to know that they do that one thing well, at least for our veterans. Not everything for the veterans, But I would suggest that you count on that. As far as the 401k, standard is make sure that you've gotten. I would listen to Dave Ramsey every day I could, but one of his points is once you get everything paid off but the house, you want to make sure that you're putting 15% of your salary, gross salary, into your 401k. But also, beyond that, you don't want all of your money in your 401k because there may come a time when you either can retire early or you have to. And if you have to take that money out of the 401k before 59 and a half, then you're going to pay tax plus a 10% penalty tax. So that's the kind of thing we want to look at. But to answer your question specifically, 15% a year is a great mark for just about everybody. Now, if you're older, I would say start slamming more money. If you're a lot younger, I'd still say 15% and look forward to a very happy and early retirement.
Angela, good question. We appreciate you.
Well, I have one more.
All right, real quick, go.
I just wanted to know if you had any jobs open at your workplace because you sound very
there we go.
Very trustworthy. I have a job currently, but I just want to know there's something out there.
That was the question that she.
Thanks,
Angela. We appreciate it. Yeah. Here's Tom on a cell phone. What's up, Tom?
Hey, good to hear from you guys there again. I wanted to ask about the mortgage rates and how they set those rates. How much does it have to do with demand and availability, and how much has to do actually with the cost of money?
All right, that's a pretty broad question, but that's kind of why we're here, because people have honest questions about all the stuff they hear. Mm-hmm. Explain that.
Well, we're not really mortgage people, but in Leland, you probably know more about it than we would. We don't do mortgages, but we see the impact of them. And sure. I don't care if interest rates are, even 1% higher than they are now. I remember the 80s when interest rates on mortgages were 15%.
It's amazing.
Or higher. Yeah, it is amazing to realize that I was stupid enough to have one of those way back then. I think it's 14.25% is the highest mortgage rate.
Wow.
But if you want to borrow money for a house, that's what it costs.
Yeah, to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I guess the loose answer to that is it's, the money supply is really kind of dictated by the Fed. And they kind of will set the base rate, which the banks use, and then you pay the markup from there. So if it was, it's not a Wild West competitive. Well, it's competitive from that point forward to get your business. But the Fed's got a hand on that wheel, and they're continuing to steer it, try to manipulate the economy. But I think they're realizing they're going to have to change that policy. All right, we're going to take this break. We'll come back. We've got a couple of lines open if you want to jump in and ask Steve a question before we get to the top. 941-1011 or 866-551-9933. Back in a minute.
Leland Live on Superstation 101.
Superstation 101 WYDE Leland live in the afternoon. New segment on the show on Wednesdays. Hope you get used to it. Hope you like it. Be thinking about it during the week if you got questions about your money. Steve Pryor with Pryor McCormick says, y'all's main line, Steve, is don't retire broke. I like that. That's just plain English.
Absolutely. We all know people who retire just as broke as the day they started.
Oh, yeah.
That's a very sad thing. We see it all the time. We talked about it the other segment, but that you don't have to do that. But let's always focus on the most important thing, which is not the rate of return. It's not whether you're in stocks or bonds. It's not any of that stuff. It's how much money you put into it. You can only do so much. You can't get blood out of a tournament. You have to put a lot of money back for retirement in order to have enough money to live.
Is Obamacare going to change people's habits, do you think? Because, now that's going to eat into some of your family budget. But how strict do you need to be about making sure you're still making that retirement contribution, either 401k or on the side of your own plan?
Yeah, if you have any distance, like if you're 50 and below, you need to focus like a laser beam. You cannot be thinking about a bass boat when you don't have all this other stuff ready. Obamacare may or may not change the habits of individuals. I think it ultimately will in certain ways, but it already is changing the habits of small business people.
The strategy anyway, right?
Yeah, well, you look at a company that's got 50 people in it. As a matter of fact, it might have been on your show the other day. A caller called in and said their company had 49 employees, and they told him that we are not hiring anybody else.
They can't cross the 50 barrier that's kind of artificially put in place right there.
Yeah.
Here's Bill in oh, never mind. AJ's still setting him up in there. Look, a fellow by the name of A.G. Gadsden became a very wealthy man, and I was honored to interview him one time. I believe he had a 4th grade education, became a black entrepreneur through civil rights now in this town, and built towers and had radio stations. And as a reporter, I got to interview him. I'll never forget this, Steve. He told me, he said, the reason he got rich, he said, I learned one thing: a little piece of everything you earn is yours to keep. That's it. In other words, he said, pay yourself first and then do everything else. And
yeah, my only variation of that is tithe first, give first, then pay yourself, and then worry about all the other stuff. And tithe, let's not confuse that with paying taxes. Tithe is something you should do, you're supposed to do. Taxes, one of my pet peeves is everybody is denigrating people who take all these tax breaks and deductions, but you have to remember, every deduction is put in there on purpose. It's your patriotic duty to take every break that you can.
You got people to say, render under Caesar that which is Caesar's. I'm like, wait a minute, we're Caesar. That's how we're set up. That is ours. We control the government. It's not. There is no Caesar. We don't have a king. So be smart with your strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And prepare for it.
Save more than you think you're going to need. That's my best advice.
Is this this economy now that has drug on like this since basically 2008? Are you? What's the age when people start hitting the panic button, realizing that retirement's coming? When do you see them walking in your door?
It's interesting you say that. I just read a study this morning, as a matter of fact. One of the large, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. One of the large publications sent out a survey, and they have determined that Generation Xers, the Generation X generation, now more than any other generation, fears retirement.
That's me. Yeah. That's my generation.
Exactly. Yeah, it's Jim McCormick's generation too, my partner. It's amazing, but you have to look at it. You heard Angela on the last segment say she doesn't think Social Security is going to be there. Well, I honestly think politically it's always going to be there, but would I recommend to a child of mine or a friend of mine who's in that age bracket to count on it? Absolutely not.
And that's what my philosophy is. I don't. I mean, they send me the statement and tell me what I'll be drawing when I get to that age. I'll consider that bonus if it's still there, if I'm old enough to take it.
Count on yourself, just like always.
Where did the time go? We need to make this thing longer. Steve Pryor, you're with Pryor McCormick. Give everybody, I want people to know how to reach you if they've got their own personal questions.
It is 986-0060, 986-0060. You can go on www.pryormccormick.com. We're right there in North Shelby County, God's country, and come see us.
All right, look, Steve Pryor, y'all will get used to know him. You'll get to know him over these Wednesday nights, and hopefully you'll find him to be a reasonable, sound, independent voice to help you guide through whatever your personal situation is, or generally here on the show to help break some of this stuff down for you. Steve, I appreciate you coming in tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right, look for us on Wednesdays now, not Monday, Wednesday at 5:30. The good folks at Pryor McCormick helping us out with our money. Back here in just a minute. Stay tuned.